Let's go.
I'd like to call the Board of Trustees meeting to order on Tuesday, January 27th at approximately 6:30 PM. In order for everyone to hear our discussions, would everybody please turn off your noisemakers or silence them in such a way that they won't disturb anybody? Roll call. Duffy here.
Zachek here.
Enquist here.
Solomon here.
Clover here.
Baker here.
Lino here. Approval of the agenda as published.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes as published.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Changes, additions, grammatical
Looks
remarks?
good.
All in favor?
Was there a zero added on Zeke's increase?
Aye.
No, not quite. Good job.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments and correspondence. Any comments from anybody in the audience about a non-agenda item? Correspondence.
We have one item of correspondence that was emailed to the
Oh, we have
board
two?
earlier. I'm sorry, you do.
We do read them, Z.
Yes, sir. Sorry, you have a couple items of correspondence, I just had one on my mind. You had several items that came in with regard to the New Year's Eve event that were enclosed. I got a number of phone calls from that as well, even had a little old lady to bring a handwritten note, that one is included here. And she was just tickled to death that we did what we did. There's also the sheriff's incident report on page 13 and 14 of your Zoom. There's nothing really outstanding there that, other than the dog bites, those are kind of interesting.
Not my dogs.
For comment. The other one is, of course, a letter that, is from Miss Juliana Newman indicating her upcoming retirement this summer. And it's appropriate if she want to make some remarks on it.
Congratulations. Congratulations, first of all. We will certainly miss you.
Yes, we will.
You have done a lot for the village, a lot for the financial side of it. We always count on you, Juliana.
I love this job, but it's just, I'm just getting too old.
You can't retire until you're 62, so I'm sorry.
10 years out.
I know, but you have to go backwards.
John, I think that's in June.
Right.
So anyway, thank you very much.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Okay. Village Board business items. Item number 1. Do I need to read this whole thing, or is
You
it?
do.
Okay. Item number 1, consider a motion to affirm the village's ownership of the wastewater treatment plant, main lift station, outfall pipe, in a letter to be sent to the town of Liberty Grove and Liberty Grove Utility District Number 1. And to affirm that the Utility Committee attempted in good faith to resolve the issue of plant ownership under Section 12.3 of the Intergovernmental Agreement, but in the village's opinion was not successful in that letter. And to affirm that in that letter, the town has not presented any written information that the town has an ownership stake in the plant. And to affirm that the village board does not believe negotiations between the town board and village board will resolve the issue when the utility committee has not. And to notify the town and utility district by letter that the village wants to proceed to mediation immediately, which is consistent with the letter from John Lowry dated December 19th, 2014. And that the chairperson of the village utility committee, village president, and village administrator are authorized to submit a person as the mediator to the town as soon as practical.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Discussion? Going once, going twice?
Go ahead.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item number 2, consider a motion to award a contract to Northrop.
I'd ask us to skip to number 4. Steve's here.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Item number 4, consider a motion to amend an existing contract with Donahue and Associates in the amount of $17,450 for various actions associated with utilities relocations as part of the Bayshore Drive project.
Okay. So the,
Which happens to be on page 63, 66 of your Zoom.
I did make an error in the board report. The board report should indicate 17,450. It says 13,900. I kind of had it cut and paste in the last place. Effectively, what we're looking to do is to have Donahue and Associates complete the utilities relocation work that was not done as part of the first round of Bayshore Drive utilities work up around Gateway Park. We will need to have our own personnel, which in this case would be Donahue as a contracted engineer to do the oversight of. Our guys will be there in the field as well to make sure things are going along like they need to go along. DOT does require that an engineer be there. We also will have to handle our own staking and other items as indicated in the section 8H of the SMA that you guys adopted last month. DOT will contract to have the work done itself, so there are multiple contractors in the job area, creating confusion, which is a fairly straightforward thing in our opinion. Steve, anything else?
This is going to be a two-stage construction. You're going to have Highway 57 done first. So the crew will be in and get that done. They'll pull off until right after, well, when do they start again? Right after September, after Labor Day. After Labor Day, and then they'll start on top of the hill and they'll move the crews back in again. So it's a two-stage deal. By permit from the state, we're required to have engineering services and inspection for any utility work, and this is part of the deal.
So, all along, we were gonna do this work up there. Donahue just didn't recognize that we needed an engineer, that it wasn't included in their initial.
No, that was included for the first part. The second part of this project wasn't included in the first go around,
How come?
because we separated that out.
I know, but all along, we said, the project is gonna start here and end here. And fine, you have phasings, but why wouldn't their engineering costs cover any and all engineering for the project? Whether it's done this year, that year, this part, that way. You know, the scope of the project was, we're doing the engineer, we're gonna engineer for, from here to here. Why doesn't it cover it?
The long and the short of that, Pat, remember last time we had the starts and the stops of work, things didn't go exactly as anticipated because of the winter weather and our efforts to push things along. I've not reviewed the contract for this portion of it. I'm really making a jump from what I know to here we are with this, and that is, that wouldn't have been billed. This essentially would be like extra hours like we came back to you last time to complete the Donahue contract. This is for the supervision portion of it.
I understand, I'm just questioning, why are the extra hours? If all, I mean, we're not, I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're doing anything that we didn't set out to do initially. The initial scope of the project was, we're gonna relay the utilities from the top of the hill to Scandia, right?
So has anything changed in that scope?
Right,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, can you explain it?
Well, the initial construction was from Highway 4257 intersection down to the main lift station. That construction took a lot more time by the contractor and the engineering. And that the inspection services, they have to be on site for all that time. They charge out for the work they do. Now, this is the second phase of that thing, and they have to charge out. They aren't gonna work for nothing. They gotta charge out for what they do.
There was a time during the first phase when we actually pulled them off because they weren't required to be there. They had it in their scope of services to be there. We asked them to step out of the way. Mike Skill and Steve stepped in to do the observation part. And then they came back for limited observation and testing again for the portions that were required for them to be there. It was a means for us to save some costs on the last go round. DOT is what will drive the inspection part on this largely because it's going to be their contractor doing the work. They're going to want to verify with an engineer on site all the time that yes, it went on the ground right. Yes, it was tested appropriately. yes, it was covered up like it was supposed to, all those components that go into utility installation.
Well, I get it, but they're engineers and they know that should have happened, and they're burying things that they knew were gonna need to be buried. Why didn't their initial scope of work cover for those costs?
I guess I'm still confused. I don't understand what changed. They were always going to do the two different pieces.
Yeah.
Did it change because we used some of the hours and time and money up because of the additional requirement from last year due to the winter weather?
Correct.
And that is why? And so we're now short on the contract to do
But why
this?
would the weather change it? Because they just weren't working. And all the weather did was delay the project for 3 or 4 months. That didn't change the scope of the contract.
Because of the water, because of everything that was underground, the project took longer than anticipated.
I thought we had, it's like a $32,000 increase, I remember last year, and then I think we ended up arguing a little bit where Steve was on site and we got it down to like 20-something or 18.
Yeah.
So isn't that I guess I'm on line with Pat and Dave. I don't understand where the extra money's coming from because we've already increased the budget by, it was somewhere between $16,000 to $30,000. I don't
You
remember
did.
what the number was.
When we discussed things with Donahue at that time, we were looking at completing the Dorner portion of the project, everything that they had touched. So this is outside the scope of that. This was phase 2.
But phase
Didn't
2
they
was
have
always
any-
part of the
Yeah,
project.
They had to have a money in there for phase 2, didn't they? What did they have budgeted and why is this so much more?
All the burn through was part of phase 1.
I guess I'd like to see a better accounting of what we're talking about, because I don't feel I'm getting all the information. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but.
Yeah, no.
Yes, sir.
Right,
Just
how
so
far
it's-
off were we? Why are we burning through all this
Yeah.
extra money? How come their engineering wasn't closer to what actually happened? They understood the climate, they're in the area, they understand delays for winter weather. How come they're so far off? I mean, they're off 18 to 30,000 last year, they're off another 12,000, we haven't even started.
Another 17.
Well, you're 17 off between
Okay.
now and being done. That's assuming you don't have hiccups with the installation of lighting. I will tell you that things have come up in this project that nobody thought about. And I'll give you an example of where some billable hours got eaten into it. The plan has been all along to take down the utility lines, have all of that overhead go underground, then have the DOT come through and do its job. And that's a very logical thought process, except nobody thought about where the streetlights would be during that whole time, that year that construction was taking place. Okay, so it's a thing that everybody just kind of took for granted. And so for some time, I've been working with Donahue and DOT and Steve to some degree to remedy that along with WPS. And so some billable hours were eaten into there for Tammy in particular, along with Kevin Jump of Donahue, to take a look at the specs and say, okay, it makes sense to pull these poles back, reset them to here, and that way street lighting is maintained and in place.
To be removed again later on.
To be removed again later on, yes.
Okay, I again would go back to, we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to an engineering firm that this is all they do. And they showed us example after example of not only road work, but street lighting. Why have they screwed this up? In my mind, this is a screw up. This isn't a, oh, we took a few extra hours, it was, we didn't think of it. Why didn't you think of it? I'd push back on the engineers and say, look, we're not engineers, which is why we're paying you all this money to be engineers. Did you understand the scope of the project? We were gonna do lighting? Yes. Did you
hired them.
adequately prepare?
You hired them to do lighting, you didn't hire them to maintain street lighting in between.
But somebody should have said, okay,
but
what do we do
yeah,
in the
They're the
meantime?
engineers and should have known, okay, from this time to this time, here's what's gonna happen in the scope of the project, and we need to build in a cost or let the customer know, hey, we're not part of this. Just the way
This 17 has nothing to do with the street lighting.
I know, what he's telling me though, it sounds like there's more coming.
No, this is just an example of things that have come up. Stormwater last year would be an example of things that came up. Time involved in calculating the Matt Meyer move for that outfall pipe would be an example of where things weren't budgeted for in their request.
He was paying
He
for that.
paid for all of that.
No, he did not.
Well, then we need to change the bill and send it to Matt Meyer.
You cannot, and that's a different agenda item.
Well, wait, you brought it up. If there was changes because of the Matt Meyer move, Matt Meyer said, I'd be willing to pay to have it moved.
Yes, sir.
The village should therefore do a reaccounting of the project and send him a revised bill. That's what you're saying to me as a taxpayer is, hey, we made a mistake, there's more project. Well, I'm not the one that said, move the pipe. In fact, I said, don't move the pipe. He said, I'll pay to move the pipe. So he pays to move the pipe.
The agreement that was negotiated with him was up to a certain amount. It was written very clearly. Maybe that was a mistake, but that's the way it was written.
We made an attempt
He
to,
paid that amount. And it costs more than that.
Do you know how much more it costs?
about $6,000
How much more?
off the top of my head. 6.
6,000?
Yeah.
Yeah, about that.
Can we talk about this? I'm just
We're
throwing it
not,
out there.
I mean, you're
It's not an
discussing.
agenda item.
You're discussing in the context of the engineering contract. So if we can circle back around to the engineering contract, what I'm attempting to do is to give you some examples of things that fell outside of the scope of their
Okay, so
original.
maybe we don't need examples, maybe we need a list of this is what fell outside or used up the time, and that's why we need X amount of dollars more. Because right now, it just doesn't make sense.
You get an itemized billing from Donahue through that whole construction project with sewer and water. They have to charge per hour for the men that are on time, that are on site. They're estimating that this next project, portion of the project, they're going to have staff on site for the inspection services and following up with the DOT and everything else, and that this is what it's going to cost for them to be on site.
Is this an
It has
estimate
nothing,
or?
it has nothing to do with the last project. It has to do with where we're going forward. And you gotta have somebody there.
Okay, but again, if it's going forward, if it's not having to do with before, this is part of the scope of the project that they understood from the beginning.
And they're giving us for a price. They're gonna be on site. They gotta charge for that.
I understand. My point is, you said it's not having to do with before, it's having to do with moving forward.
Correct.
Why wasn't that accounted for in their original scope, is my question.
We don't have any answer than the ones that we provided.
Doesn't it
The
have
original
to do
scope,
with
I'll back up. The original scope included the whole project.
Right?
The actual cost for inspection was from 5742 to the main lift station. That section from top to hill was not in the,
So we were having the utility work done, but we.
to that point, yes.
Right, okay.
Now we have to go again. This is another part of the project that was put off for a later time. We have to pay for inspection services on a price per hour. That's what they're estimating that it's gonna take.
So this is the inspection service. Are we then gonna get a bill for the actual work?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
DOT's gonna bill it to us.
right. Was that included in the amount of money that we approved?
No.
No.
But it
You-
does.
You had 2 phases on the project. So the Dorner phase, which is what Steve was just talking about, was let's just call it a $2 million project, right? To do that section, this other bit of work until it's actually bid out by DOT this May, we won't have a number on what that is. We have an estimate at this point, which is somewhere in the ballpark of $120,000 to get the work completed.
And that's separate and above anything that's been put in place so far.
Yes, sir.
So somewhere along the line, the idea of it all being one big package got broken out.
Correct.
Well, I don't believe so, because Donahue themselves is citing a revised contract total amount from the original agreement, Amendment 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So there was an original agreement
Okay,
that
but what
included
what
this
are
scope
the
of work.
amendments? Do you know what the amendments are?
I don't know, it's just, it's in this
Right.
overview here.
Right, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what
we
are
need
the
to figure out-
amendments, what was broken out, and why? And why is there the additional dollars? Because now you're talking 17,000, but now you're also saying 150,000.
Yes.
So we're not talking about a $17,000 project, we're talking about a $167,000 project.
Right, and I do remember talking about phasing it at different times. My
Yes.
question just is, did we have the cost estimate budgeted for? Or once we get this next bill of 120 to 150, are we gonna have to go borrow money or find that in the budget? Or was that accounted for
This-
when we talked about how much the budget was gonna cost?
When we did this round of budgeting, we did not include a number because at that time, we didn't have a firm estimate on what this project would be. And subsequent to that, we got an estimate that said, hey, this is gonna be in the ballpark of $120,000. We do have funds available, we'll verify that, looking at the available cash inside the utility to take care of the issue. You guys could table it, and we can bring you back the former amendments and the original contract.
I guess I'd just like some clearer information.
So when we talk about, Steve, you talk about we get detailed billing of what,
Excuse me.
when they give us an estimate, they must estimate the number of hours that, okay, now you get a detailed bill to say, okay, we did, this section of the project, the estimate was this, here's what the cost was. Do they do that we can kind of say, okay,
We compared what
here's,
they billed us to back to the contract sum, and then when we got close to it, I came back for an amendment of the contract sum. And that's where your amendments have come from.
okay. Well, I guess it would be nice if they can, maybe, they're basing this on estimates and hours, is okay, when you send us a bill, what I'd like to see is, here's the work, here was the estimate, the percentage of the contract amount that we signed. It was 11 hours, and therefore it's $12,000. Here's what it actually took, 9,000, 15,000, whatever it is, that we can say, okay, we can see this was more, this was less.
Did the phasing and everything go through Bay Shore Oversight? Is that how it was packaged and put together through Bay Shore Oversight Committee? When we had all the meetings with Donahue and DOT and everything else? So somewhere in the minutes, this is kind of laid out? Somewhere in the discussion? I mean, we had quite a few meetings on this whole thing. And I remember there being, the phase up above, because we couldn't really put the sewer and water, originally we were gonna put the sewer and water in right away. We couldn't because they were gonna cut down the hill, and we had to wait for that, and that became part of the, quote, the DOT piece. And that became phase 2. I understand that, okay? But I'm unclear as to how the money flows differently with Donahue and what they were going to do with the whole project versus now breaking it out phase 1, phase 2. I don't remember there being a clear discussion about that. I was always under the assumption that it was all part of the package.
Right. The scope is from this point to this point. Whether we do it this year, last year, this year, or next year, it's all part of the scope of the project.
So maybe we need to get Tammy to explain it a little bit better to us.
And I guess at this point, I would like them to look hard. I don't want any more surprises. Is there anything else that we?
surprises on top of that hill.
Okay. Well, like this though, the idea of, well, we really didn't account for it. Well,
I
why
can tell
not?
you,
I mean,
you have two different things, and I'm gonna just call your attention to another project we have going on inside the context of this. WPS, I think, handled this very astutely. Okay, WPS said, we're not gonna tell you how much it's gonna cost. We're going to tell you a general ballpark of how much we think it's going to cost. You could see 20% above that, you could see 20% below that, and we won't know until we actually get into the conditions of the ground what that is.
why do we do all this testing then for tens of thousands of dollars if it doesn't make a damn bit of difference because the estimates don't mean shit?
Testing is what the engineering is based on, right? So what kind of pipe you need to lay in the ground, the angles you need to lay them at, where you need to put things. So that's a qualitative component, not a quantitative component.
Because of the severe winter, the amount of rain, the amount of water, there was an awful lot of time spent just trying to pump things out. We spent, and the contractor spent all kinds of time trying to get this project done. Considering the weather, considering everything else that was going on, they did a fantastic job to get done as fast as they did. But it took more time than what was expected. We had an inspecting on the job. We got billed for the time that they were on the job. And again, going forward, this section of job, we're going to be paying for having inspection on the job. It's, whether it's your estimate or not, the fact of the matter, they put the time in on the last part of the project, and now we have to have somebody there to make sure that what is designed gets in the ground, as well as have them there when the top of that hill comes off. We have to make sure that the sewer lines are going to be intact. If not, they're going to have to run overland for a time being. If the water lines get blasted apart, we're going to have to run that overland for a time being. This is still not an easy project to complete. The cost of that estimate is due to the complexity of what's going to happen when you take 6 feet off the top of that hill. So it's going to take time, and this is what the estimate's going to be for ADGAR engineers and inspection there to make sure that the integrity of your pipes, both what is there and what's going to be put back in, to provide service to the rest of the utility. It's the cost of doing business.
Okay, again, I guess I would just like to reach out and say, are there any other areas that you feel we missed? To me, we missed this. It's fine, whatever it is, okay. You know,
Do we see anything else coming?
yeah.
Yes. What that dollar amount is, I don't know what to tell you, Pat, with the line burial in particular.
The DOT project going through, I'm really nervous about it. The storm sewer, you talk about a 5-foot storm sewer going down through the middle of the highway with our brand new sewer and water lines through there. Yeah, I'm nervous.
Sitting right on top of all the underground utility lines.
Power lines.
Okay, guys, if we weren't confident, why did we say, let's go ahead with the layout of this project? We should be confident that we've got the best engineers, we got a good estimate, and it's gonna go smooth sailing, is the way I feel.
Well,
Perfect.
Oh, no, this
you can
is,
have,
this
you
is
can have great
the,
estimates and all that kind of stuff, and I think we do have a good engineer. But you can't account for weather, and you can't account what you're gonna find 15 feet underground. There's gonna be issues. So, yeah, you try and smooth that out. But I do agree, it seems like something's been missed, and there's something I don't understand yet about the dollars involved.
We can go back and do another review of the contract.
Can we get Donahue to come and talk to us?
I'm sure we're gonna pay for it.
If you want to put that in and tell us the same thing, yes, sir, we can get her up here.
Well, tell us the same thing isn't gonna do it. It's not good enough. It's not good enough answer yet.
where? I guess it's just, you know, why, you know, we would have expected, even though it's in 2 time frames, why was the engineering estimate so far off?
Or was it? Go look at the contract again and find out, what did you
Yeah, somebody's
estimate
gotta
for
look at
your
it.
hours on, and your contract, and did you do both of them?
Because really,
Is it
we
your
had to
fault?
pay extra in the fall for their estimating. So to Steve's point, this shouldn't be about that. We didn't eat up the hours for this project. We used more hours than they budgeted, and then we had to pay them more. This should have been estimated and be in the contract, is what I'm thinking, unless
That's what I'm
somebody
thinking,
missed
too.
it.
Right.
I was just gonna say that I wish I had it for you, but I think what you need is a report on what's been spent on the utility
Why?
project, what we originally estimated, and, you know, because we're sitting here and we don't really, we know that the Dorner bid came in less than expected, You know, so I think that would be it would help, but I can't give you that tonight, you know. if you need
No,
that.
and that's all right. It's just the idea of, to me, if we settled up on the overage for what's been done already, this is a different section of the project. But why wasn't that budgeted and accounted for?
You were expecting a set aside inside of the original contract for that amount, so there'd be money available to tap to do this. I think I understand what you're saying.
You know, the engineering estimate for the project is this. We're gonna spend this amount of money on this time frame for this part of the project. We're gonna spend this amount of money for this,
You know,
that now is gonna be done this.
as I'm sitting here listening to everybody, I think maybe I'm kind of jumping on the side of Donahue here. I think that's what this is they know that that DOT has required them to have an on-site supervisor, like they did with this last last phase of the project. And now they're saying, I know they're gonna do it again, so here's what our costs are gonna be.
And let's.
I mean, I wanna verify it before we say anything,
Yeah, 'cause
but I
it
think
says
that's.
it's like-
One more piece of this that's coming along with it, to the state municipal agreement. DOT has said, we don't want to touch the staking. Okay, we're not going to do the staking. You guys need to go contract out for staking. There needs to be a coordination between the engineer and the observation of staking. That's what part of this is, and that's merely one component of it. So, again, back to the original statement, DOT is in the driver's seat. With that said, it seems like there's enough discord around the table. It would make sense to go out and just pull a detailed billing report of what Donahue's done, also the previous two amendments in the original contract, and just bring it back to the next board meeting.
And I think the information that Juliana discussed, having the project spreadsheet, see where we are in the project versus what we spent and what we thought we were gonna spend,
Right.
would be helpful.
Yes, sir.
It'll all dovetail together, hopefully.
Okay, it's the staking, help me understand, is that the staking for the,
You're gonna blow a
Burying
hill
of
apart.
the-
Yep,
yeah.
and you need to know where you're gonna put stuff, and where stuff is before you blow it apart.
The requirement of inspection services is not a DOT requirement. That's our DNR permits the installation of sewer and water lines.
DOT also has under
Yeah.
SMA as a
Yeah.
part of that.
And I remember it being a surprise last year that, hey, what are you guys doing? You need to have someone on site. It was like the meeting before the construction began at the Bay Shore Oversight. And I remember it saying, we gotta be here, so it's gonna cost more money. And then it came to board just shortly after. So I bet you that's what this is, but it's still like some justification for it.
Right. Okay, so we're going to table this, subject to further information for the next meeting.
Good idea.
Yes.
Do we have any time constraints on this?
We've got to have somebody selected in place prior to DOT bids. As long as we can address it in February, we're in good shape. If you all take significant issue with it, we then start to run into a time compression problem, that'll give us March to get it resolved.
They're letting bids in April?
May, I believe so.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, back up to number 2. Consider a motion to award a contract to North Road Construction by Gino J. Geminami.
You're good as mine.
Pretty close. 1304 North Road, Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the amount of $28,000 for renovation of marina public restrooms.
Okay. So, this is a project come before the Marina Committee a couple of times. By statute, any public construction needs to be approved by this board, and that's why it's coming before you all tonight. There's a vast discrepancy between the apparent low bidder and the runner-up of several $1,000s. We have done some pretty extensive background checking into North Roads construction. Ms. Tatz was called 3 references. This gentleman is a tradesman, he's not a general contractor. He has some expansive experience in masonry, and he put in a bid as such to do the work on this job site. One of the references that he gave was a school district. Everyone was satisfied with working with him, and John, we talked about this prior, same story holds. He does have insurance. Juliana, just this afternoon, he sent a copy of things. This is structured as a sole proprietorship. The sole proprietor is not required under state of Wisconsin code to have workman's comp insurance. He sent me a memo on that on state of Wisconsin letterhead. We could have a separate conversation about that. He's got liability insurance in place. By far the lowest bidder.
Is everybody on the Marina Committee happy that this is?
Yeah, we had the discussion, kind of half of the committee there, talking about it. It was asking about getting references to find out, because he was low, and they said, well, he doesn't have a website, doesn't have that. Well, I was an independent contractor for 35 years, and I didn't have a website either, but,
Which is okay.
So,
I mean,
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, was he viable, and that's what we asked, and that's what Zeke is saying. They checked into it, and he is viable, and we did ask to get references, and Zeke said he got 3 references, so I'm
I
comfortable
called
with that.
Randy Nesbitt on this earlier today as well, so Randy, anything that isn't very clear cut, okay, I call Randy on it, and we have a conversation about the ins and outs of what could happen, and essentially said, look, as long as you have a tight control on the contract, which we've established, essentially we will front out a mobilization fee to the contractor of approximately $5,000. We will do a direct buy of all the materials, and we will issue payment in tranches as work is completed. I've engaged our building inspector, Brett Gillett, to go in and look on to make sure everything's being done appropriately. It'll cost us a couple $100 for inspection, $400 to have Brett go in and do it, but I view that as a minimum cost, given the.
Considering
Better safe
$10,000
than-
Yeah, the difference between the two.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody in Marina's happy?
Yes.
Administrator's happy?
John's happy.
I'll be happy when it's done and Brett signs off on it.
Okay. I guess we need a motion from somebody.
Make a motion to approve the North Road construction of Green Bay, the amount of $28,000 to renovate the public marina restrooms.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All,
Funds for paying for this?
In the Marina CIP.
Okay, so they already have all the funds there.
Yeah, we've already budgeted, and then we had a grant for 50% of the cost, so I think they're gonna pay, 15 or something
Well,
like
it's
that.
50% of the 15,000.
Yeah, so.
Okay,
Nice.
so even if it's a little over, it'll be covered.
I would hope so. Yes, ma'am.
anybody else?
He's in for a lump sum of 28, so he can't exceed without a change order.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Boy, couldn't get much smaller tonight. Consider a motion to award a contract to Living Labs LLC in the amount of $13,900 for production of wayfinding signage master plan and type designs.
So this item came from the Parks Committee. You all know DOT is going to cruise through town with a bulldozer and knock everything that is currently recognizable out of commission. We looked at 2 different companies to do some wayfinding signage. This was incorporated as part of the budget process. This bid came in a little bit lower than what we incorporated as part of the budget. This company will come in, spend a few days up here, engaged as regular citizens would be in Sister Bay, traveling through a number of modalities, bike, walk, car, and then make recommendations on locations for signage and provide us with 3 types of signs for us to select from. There'll be a public input session, and this is also the same company the village of Ephraim is using for their streetscape. And I've heard nothing but positive things about them from the folks down in Ephraim.
Their proposal was very impressive.
Yes.
Put together, very professional.
Very complete, yeah.
If they put that much time
And
into
samples and-
to writing a proposal and putting it out, that goes a long way in my mind, for credibility.
Yeah, I thought it was very good too.
So I'm curious, we recently, I think, spent a lot of time, money, and effort on the new logo and signs that we're doing.
Still be incorporated. The signs that you see.
So we're
now-
not gonna get proposals for them to do different logos or different signs?
No,
No.
they'll be working on, if you can think about the Say for example, at the end of Mill Road here, it's a Sister Bay sign with directional slats underneath that. At 35 miles an hour in the middle of July, when all of our parallel parking is filled up, not only are the slat signs unreadable, but the whole thing's almost unrecognizable. It's just a blur. So what they'll do is come in and essentially test drive our village to figure out, okay, this is readable, this isn't readable, we need to clean this up. These are our recommendations. If you all want to have positive signage that gets people to where it needs, where you need to be. There is, let's see if I can quickly locate this. Mapping kiosks would be another part of this they may end up recommending to us. Something we,
Street signs.
in Traverse City, John,
Yes.
Yeah.
right, they've got some of those over there. That's one of the things I've talked about with them. You can see one on page 55 of your Zoom.
I can tell you from experience, Traverse City is up high and looks very professional, and it's very easy to see where everything is. You know, I mean, being there, you know, as a voter and walking along, I mean, I remember seeing before any of this was there, you know, it's directions and looking at it, and you could see it from a good distance away, and it's up above all the traffic.
Yes, sir. And again, if you look, again, page 56, this is just another example of things. You can see head height, that's where the actual signage starts for things. For ours, it's down around waist height right now. You know, there's the big Sister Bay, which everybody recognizes that they're in Sister Bay, hopefully at that point. Where's the post office? I don't know. Where's the library? I don't know. Where's the Piggly Wiggly? I don't know.
Where's parking?
Right, where's parking, right, and parking being a major challenge as we go through this. I figure this is sort of the cherry on top of the giant cake that you all have put together as part of the Bayshore Drive process. When I looked at it, it seemed to be the only thing that really was missing.
So this is the actual production of signs, this is just the layout, the signs we'll need.
Yes.
And then at one point or another.
Right, We'll
as
come
you
back
say,
with up to 3 options.
Three options, correct.
for us
And then
to-
we'll just pull the trigger on one of those. Now, do they make the signs as well, or is
They
this something?
contract it, and Shane, would best guess, gonna be looking at somewhere around $50,000 and talking to them to put up signage. It'll depend on number, how fancy they are, if there are any kind of special features that go along with them. Movable face, digital face, anything like that, you can get into a lot of money.
Which I think we did at Parks, we had 2 budgets.
Yes, sir.
You know, we did a, first budget was this one, which is significantly lower than I think than what we had
Yes, sir.
budgeted for.
I think we put in 15, this came in at 13.
Yeah, so, I mean, it was lower for this, and then the next one was going into 2016 budget to be, you know.
Considered as a
Yeah,
part of that.
Considered as part of that budget, which we put together for the other part.
We'll just have to convince the finance chair to take a look at it.
Not part of my job.
Okay, motion by Lino.
A second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 5, consider a motion to set open book and board of review dates for 2015.
Okay, so, talking to Action Appraisers, they're looking at open book on May the 28th from 2:30 to 4:30. Last year, I think they did that in the Village Hall. And then Board of Review, June 16th at 5 o'clock. And you all know how fun that is.
Okay, an open book, we're not part of?
No, you're not part of open book, it's the Board of Review. You are Board of Review.
Okay, June what?
16th.
A Tuesday.
If you guys were amenable to it, we just set our meeting for the month on that day unless you want to do 2.
Well, we have to do it separately,
We
so
do.
it has to be separate.
Yeah.
We can convene, then recess, open the board of review.
Yep.
So do these happen in June for a certain reason, or is there a way to get it done in like February when
Well,
the weather's like this, rather than one of the 2 months that we have decent weather?
you normally have to have it when most people will be around, because if somebody wants to challenge,
It's cycling of the tax calendar.
Right.
And
And-
the assessments.
in the past, the village assessor required more time than the current assessor does. And so we always pushed it off into the fall. I don't want to go too much farther with that. But,
I think that they have to have the open book first, because if
Yes.
there's somebody
Yes.
that's
Correct.
protesting
Yeah,
that,
right.
they have to have a certain amount of time, don't they?
Yes.
To,
Yes.
And again, the
they have
same
so
thing
much
you-
time to say, okay, I met with you on this, and now I'm gonna sue you, and so I've gotta,
Right.
Yep.
And they also don't want to have it this time of the year because there's not enough of the people around that might want to challenge their assessments and provide information to the assessor. June is actually pretty early,
yeah.
by our standards.
Better than last time. We had July, the last couple of times, it's been July and August.
Yeah. So June 16th?
Yes, sir, 5 o'clock.
I'm good.
So I will make that motion to approve the open book on May 28th from 2:30 to 4:30, and the board of review on June 16th at 5 PM.
I'll second it.
Locations to be posted.
That's what I thought Shane said.
But yeah, it was at the tail end of that.
Got it.
Who was the?
It was mumbling.
He mumbled it.
Shane.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried?
So will the board meeting be held just shortly after that?
Yeah, we can start the board at
At
7.
That's what we did last year, so.
Do,
It has to
we
be
have
2
to
hours.
be
Yeah,
open.
it has to be
We have to
2
be,
hours.
we have to sit here for 2
2
I
hours.
brought pizza last year.
Yeah, regardless of some, and we can't discuss the board
Right,
during
can't
that
be,
2 hours.
cannot be in conjunction with, it has to be separate.
Yep.
We had pizza last year?
Yeah,
Did I miss it?
probably.
Yeah, you were off for those couple months,
Yeah.
remember? And then you came back after.
That's right. That's right.
That was a whole year ago.
I know.
Hey, if you get reelected in April, you won't have to worry about it.
There better be pizza.
This will probably be the only 5th time we've heard the same argument anyway. It'll be the same suit.
Open book.
Do we have anything under 6 to do? I don't believe so. We took care of it
I've
last
just
time.
left that one up there as an open one.
Understand,
now
that's fine.
Forever.
Item 6, nothing to do. Item 7, report on county activities from County Supervisor Dave Lino. Excuse me. We had county board this morning. We're getting ready to move along in the process of hiring a new administrator. We're also getting ready to move along in the process of hiring a new financial department director. Shirley tendered her resignation effective in, well, Friday, last Friday was the last day? I think it was last Friday was the last day. So the county's in the process of doing those 2 things, while they're also, now is when you kind of start the budget process for the year. So in the next month, they'll start the budget process again. And that's pretty much where it's at. Everything else was a matter of transfers of funds, just like happens here. If there's a non-budgeted fund that comes up, you have to have a vote of 2/3 of the board to pass it. And, you know, examples I can give you are like the county, the highway department, maybe has money in these line items that they don't use, but in these line items they went over. Maybe it was because of snow and ice and road repair because of last year's winter, it costs more in maintenance. But they can't just take money from over here, bridges and roads funds, where they have it without a 2/3 vote of the board because it wasn't budgeted. So today we did 6 or 7 of those kind of cleanups, where you transfer and move things around based on closing out 2014. And in the case of the county, the audit for 2014 is not done until June of the following year. So June of 2015 is when the budget for the prior year actually gets totally closed out. So the months in between is when they find these little tweaks that need to be made, and that's what, you know, the cleanups. And so this time of the year is when that stuff starts to happen.
Okay.
So it took up the majority of the board time, I would say. Did I miss anything?
How about the over 2 million fiber project?
Yes, we did approve, there's a 3-year fiber project to wire fiber to the, for instance, here, to this station, each of the individual cell towers, not cell towers, the new emergency dispatch towers that were put up. Most of them are on end-site Cellcom cell towers. The county also built 2 new ones of their own, separate from that, and we're running fiber to all those. It's a 3-year project, it's a $2.5 million project. We approved transferring the 1.2 or 1.3 million for the first phase for this year, for 2015, to Cellcom/Insight that was approved today to take out of the unassigned fund balance. And then next year and the following year, it'll go through the capital improvement CIP program. It may, and finance may decide to take it out any number of ways. But anytime we have these projects, there's always a question as how you're going to fund it. You're going to fund it out of reserves, unassigned fund balance, or you're going to borrow. And that always becomes the question within the board. What do you want to do with it? In November, the board basically told the finance committee, find money other than borrowing. And so that's what we had to do. We had to find it on finance chair. So we had to find it, and the best way to find it was to take it out of the unassigned fund balance for this point in time. Again, because 2014 is not closed out because the audit isn't complete till June. There's a lot of what-ifs, so there's some money over here in these funds, so you take those. Now, you may find out in June.
Needed some.
You need some. And so then you make some final corrections. Yeah, so, you know, it was that kind of, those types of items that were on, is what the agenda was for today.
Any movement on the motel?
The also, pardon?
Any movement on the motel, or is that not a board item?
Motel?
Downtown
That's a
motel.
city.
Oh, that's a city.
That's
That's a
city.
city.
Oh, that's a
yeah.
city,
That's a
okay.
city,
It's
right.
not a county.
The other thing that there was some movement on is the board did approve up to an expenditure of $150,000 towards building a new, to do the study and determine the need and come back to the board to build a new senior resource center. But the senior resource center is not going to be called that anymore. It's currently be called the Human Services Building. What's occurring with Wisconsin is going into, or Door County is becoming part of the family care program within the state. I think there was only 7 counties that weren't part of that. Door County is one of those 7, and we're going into family care in August of this year. The family care takes on your aging, your disabled population. Right now we have, I think, 75 and 80 people on waiting lists to get into that kind of care, and it goes up and down over the years, and so those will all be incorporated into family care. It's an aging disability resource center, basically what it is. And so our ADRC that does that now, and they come up here every Thursday and use one of the offices back here by the ambulance shop, has been charged with, originally they were going to put people in place to whittle through and qualify those people. It's a very long process to quantify and qualify those individuals as to when they go into family care and where they go and how they're serviced. And the funding for that was removed. Instead, the state said, your ADRC that is now up and operating will take on that job. Well, the ADRC right now is overburdened and overtaxed as it is. Okay? So we now have to find a way by August to fund additional people to do the ADRC to qualify all those people going into family care. But at the same time, it has become apparent to the county that instead of having a separate senior center, it probably needs to be in conjunction with an ADRC or human services building in the same building. So exactly what that's going to be when it comes back, we don't know, but the county has set aside $300,000 each of the last couple of years as seed money to get that going. We knew it was going to happen at some point in time, so there's about a $600,000 kitty for that, and we're going to authorize up to $150,000 to do those studies, to come back to the county board for final authorization and accept those studies and final authorization to proceed ahead. And, you know, who knows what that means? Could be millions of dollars, could be not millions of dollars. And that'll open up the next phase of, okay, now how are we going to do this? That in conjunction with a number of other big ticket items that are coming at the county. Any questions?
Some big things going on in the county.
There is. Item number 8, review of the financial statements, consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills.
Okay, don't panic. The expenditures that you're really approving come to $241,439.16.
So who gets the million?
I do.
The million.
All the children, Dave. All the children.
Right, I got 3.
You're on
I knew they were good for something.
Line them up.
Right.
The county treasurer sends us all of the tax money, or in the first installment thereof. And then we have to pay back the county, the state, and the two schools. So, 1 million and close to 160,000 went out the door to send that tax money to the rightful owners of it. So,
Don't freak, is what
so
you're
you can
saying.
relax about
Don't
that
freak.
number.
So it comes in and it goes out.
Why does it come in and go out, though? Why don't they just do it down there? Why can't they distribute it? Why are we doing it
Less
twice?
paperwork for them, I guess.
It's gotta be some legal thing, John, it doesn't make any sense to me either. Some bureaucrat somewhere thought it was a good idea.
To do it twice?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's job security.
Well, I mean, that way you know you get the money from the county,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um,
I have a question on page 68 of the Zoom, page 1. On Burkhardt High Stuff, I assume that's an insurance company payment for $31,000?
Page 68 of the Zoom.
Yes.
Zoom, village page 1 on the bills.
Yep, 61, I mean, 68 and 69, yeah, that's
Yeah,
our insurance.
I assume that's for insurance for the village. My question is how does that compare to previous years for insurance? And did we or are we considering going out to bid for insurance? Because insurance companies are famous for jacking your price up and every year, and then you go out to bid, you find out there's somebody that'll do it a heck of a lot cheaper.
The changes were minimal this year, and this is a renewal effective January 1. We're on the calendar year now for all of this. We used to be on various dates, but now we're in the calendar year. And I was actually pleased that it came in so close to last year's numbers.
Yeah. When was the last time we sent it out to market? Do we know?
Juliana, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the municipal league, they're now partnered with Burkhardt.
Yeah, we changed the property insurance from the local government, LCIP, what's it called, 2 or 3 years ago. And we went with this league broker for all of it. And they got us, there was a reduction then.
Yeah. Which usually there is when you go out
When you go
to
out to
market,
bid.
so I just, not this year, but I mean, we just started the contract, but it might behoove us next year to rebid it, give them an opportunity to bid as well. I mean, I'm not saying go away from them, but they have a real good habit of finding out that, geez, I got a nice comfort, and I'll just give you our little increase every year. And
Sure, I will tell you the one
go out shopping,
positive
it's
thing,
several $1,000s cheaper.
and I don't disagree with you a bit on it. When we pick up the phone, we call them, they are experts on municipal law. So you'll hear me throw around the term recreational immunity a lot. Where I learned that vocabulary word was them. There's some value in just
And that's
that part.
that's also part of our access to them is because of our
Yes.
membership in the League of Municipalities.
Yes, sir.
Under card member services, right under that, fireworks for $15.87 or 67. That's all it costs for all that fireworks?
Yes, sir.
How many pallets was it?
That was one giant pallet.
One big pallet.
Really?
That's,
Next year
just
too.
so everybody
Yes.
knows how that
Yeah.
works. That went,
We knew somebody in the business.
yeah, that's how that worked. I did, just so nobody would think anything was funky about it, I put it directly on my village credit card. However, if you look further back in here, you'll see a payment to Zeke Jackson now.
I see
We
that. It's
saw
on
that.
the thing,
I
but it
noticed
says-
that.
It doesn't
Everybody's
say
listening.
fireworks on it, though. It
Easy,
says
Bobsy
cable.
Twin. One at a time.
We inadvertently came close to maxing out the village credit card. We have a combined credit limit. And so we needed to pay a bill to get internet turned on to the marina because apparently Charter misrouted the bill for several months. And I used my credit card to make sure we had internet at the marina. So that's what that
Well,
was.
that answers my question, thank you. I was wondering why you were paying.
Thankfully, it had something to do with the marina, right?
Yeah, well, that's why I looked at it and said, why are we having Zeke, for $1,600 bucks
So
or
did we
whatever?
have
He's
unusual
donating.
expenditures that created a potential problem with the credit card? You know, I'm just wondering, should we be asking for an increase so that you?
That's- I know Juliana talked about it.
Yeah, we were thinking about it. Charter
mean-
wanted, well,
Thank you for doing it, but, you know,
Yeah.
I
Charter
don't want
wanted to do
anyone.
an ETF transfer, and we've been having so much trouble with them around this whole internet deal. I
Really?
wouldn't
A critical-
wanna give
That's
them
not
our
going
bank
smoothly
account.
for you?
Yeah.
We've all dealt with them, I think.
One of the, since we're talking about charter again, on
You
page
notice
2,
that.
69 of the Zoom, page 2 of the village, we have Boathouse
TV.
TV in there for $60-some again. Has
It was-
anybody done that and brought that up last time? Has
They
anybody
have.
talked to them about sleeping?
It was brought up, and I remember hearing Janelle and Wendy talking to them over the telephone. That was, I think, part of how we got into the conversation about, oh, wait, you owe us X.
Oh, good.
Right?
But we'll still charge you the 69.
Well, so let's expect that to stop.
All right.
70,
Grants, so,
page 70 on the Zoom, Village, page 3. Dimension 4, what are we done with them, or was this the electric?
I withheld their last payment to make sure things would line up.
Okay.
I will tell you that, no, we're not quite done with them. There's still another $1,600 hanging out that were miscellaneous expenses. Some of that relating to upsizing of power that we made a decision to do. We had 200 amp service, then we went to 400 amp service. We could get all the juice in there that we needed. There are also a couple of odds and ends after a walkthrough with the donors. The donors said, look, we like these few things taken care of. We want this to be a first-class facility, and we feel like they should have been taken care of. The most outstanding of those would be the fascia on the front.
Wavy?
Yep,
Yeah.
and so Dan, when we had these conversations, said, look, we can put this material on, it's gonna be a cheaper material, there may be some oil canning, and I distinctly remember that conversation. At the time, we said, yeah, because we're trying to pare that project way back to save it. It's noticeable to those that know, it's probably noticeable to those in architecture. If you're drinking a beer and watching the concert, you're probably not paying a lot of attention to it. We are, on the conversation we have, gonna move ahead and have that fixed. That's about another $5,000 expense that we hadn't anticipated. We'll figure out where to pull that money from, so we have a first-class facility down there.
Okay.
What are you putting up there, Gold?
We are set, no.
No, it's a jointed system that somebody has to run through a machine to put a bead in a piece of flashing that's a heavier gauge, and then it has to be slip jointed up there. It's the only way to do that long of a run without getting the oil canning. Also has to do with the color. If you guys had picked white or a dimple material, it probably wouldn't be.
Us guys?
Whoever.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty damn good.
I do too.
I like the colors we have out
So
there.
you'll see a couple more bills coming, related to the pavilion on things that we've either held or that they're still owed. For example, stage lighting and sound has to come back in this summer and do training and hang the stuff up.
Okay.
We're holding on to a bill for them until they come back and do that.
Okay.
So even through the summer, you'll see a couple of things that float in from the pavilion.
Nothing major, though.
I mean, I guess it depends on what you want to call major. I mean, some things are
Okay.
nothing that upsets me.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Anything on utility?
Nope.
A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we pay bills totaling $1,401,099.66.
I'll second that motion.
I would,
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report from the village administrator on various actions.
Okay, so the first one is street lighting and line burial, as you heard me make mention of momentarily ago. We had some issues with maintaining street lighting. WPS designer and Donahue have talked and are attempting to come up with a viable solution. I've also involved DOT in that process to see what they will require, given that we're gonna have this huge DOT project come through. WPS feels like they're gonna be able to solve the challenge. Their major focus is gonna be the intersections. You will see the street lighting come down behind the post office that currently is illuminating those parking lots. Action Electric will install lights on the post office building, so if there's any question about that, hey, why is the parking lot not lit up, that's where that'll go. At some point, the lights that we have down in Marina Park have to come out for the DOT project. They'll then be ours to put somewhere. Having some additional lighting over there may be something we want to look at in the future. So met with the contractor a week before last. We'll be meeting with them again tomorrow. Steve will be a part of that meeting, and they're still hoping to start next week. In talking to them, the part that I was most concerned about would be traffic flow, given what we went through last year. The contractor anticipates being able to use the parking lanes for their equipment and location to keep traffic two ways most of the time. There will be a couple of points in the project, for example, up around Husby's in the bowl, where they're gonna have to detour because there's just tight tolerances there. There's nowhere to get in. And when they make the street crossings, they'll have to shut down.
So when you say detour, are you talking one way, or are you talking about?
They'll have to, all traffic will have to roundabout. Husby's in the bowl, I would imagine.
Yeah, so you're just gonna go off the left side and around like before, I guess.
So do you anticipate there being one-way traffic at any point in time during the project at this point?
Husby's in the bowl is the only one that stands out in my mind. There's one way, the rest of them will probably be shut down. There'll be no traffic past a certain point, and we'll have to detour. One point would be right over here on the other side of Mill, north side of Mill. They'll have to do a crossing, three-phase and single-phase, and that will necessitate shutdown, so we'll send them up Mill to Woodcrest, Woodcrest to Scandia, and Scandia down. I'll make sure they have it signed appropriately the whole time. I have asked our Parks Department to next week get up the signs that we had up last year to indicate uptown, downtown, very generic business forms that are there. It will have some challenge with that. That's because in just a couple of the places, they had concreted posts in the ground, and to get them out this winter, knowing that DOT was just gonna rip them out, they just sawed them off. So there'll be a couple of sites you won't see them back again. Preemptively to have something up.
And what additional cost are we gonna have to come up with as a result of the lighting changes potentially and signage changes?
So, I don't have that number for you, Dave, and WPS doesn't have that number.
Uh-oh, he's calling me Dave.
Yeah. This entire project, let me make you feel really good by comparison. So when I had the conversation with WPS about Egg Harbor and Egg Harbor's ambitious project, he said, well, Egg Harbor's is gonna cost somewhere between double and triple what yours is. Here's why. You all are getting a credit from WPS according to the rules and regulations that govern WPS. They had to give us close to a $400,000 credit for the DOT project. So we timed it just right, and then another roughly $200,000 because the poles had aged out, so it was time for them to replace their poles anyway. So from a timing standpoint, you couldn't have done anything better. However, they've given us an estimate, or at least WPS has given us the estimate from their portion. You're looking at $560,000 for the WPS portion of the project, another $140,000 for charter, roughly $50,000 for Insight. There's one other one that's on there that's just a short run, and I haven't received any estimate from them, and they won't give us one until they've got their work completed.
Oh, that's not bad though.
We budgeted $1 million.
I mean, it's a lot of money.
Right, but.
Yeah, no,
the
but
budget-
that sounds like
Still above the
750.
budget.
Yeah.
I guess I want to narrow it back
We
down
can't
to
go
part of the
for
original question. What, if any, additional dollars do you foresee for the lighting issue?
Don't have an answer to
Dave,
that.
Zeke, okay.
Do we have to have lights?
And that, quite frankly, they don't
Yeah,
have a
DOT.
plan yet. It was one of the things that we had talked about, and Jeff Pelichek has kicked that over to WPS, I'm sorry, to DOT. Jeff Pelichek of WPS has kicked it over to DOT to ask the question. DOT hasn't answered the question yet. However, just from a safety standpoint, we have the distinction of being the oldest municipality by median age in the state. It's probably a good idea.
Yeah, and for that very reason, there's not a lot of people walking the sidewalks at night.
Like
That's another
not,
way to look at it.
So, I mean, yeah, you can have lights, but they're not there. They're not using them. See?
We could issue headlamps, everybody. Can-
Well, that might be
We should
cheaper.
have
You know, I say that in jest, but I mean, in all seriousness, if it's gonna cost us $50,000 to to leave poles up and then have them come and take them out and do it again when they get around to it, when they,
That
you know.
sounds cheaper.
One of
I don't
one of the things we've discussed is that them going ahead and essentially abandoning the lines that they have, they'll go ahead and do that as planned. You're then talking about them coming back and setting a few poles. I don't know if they'll do a lateral off of it and run a riser up to charge it, or
Maybe
if
an
they're gonna
overhead
run
string or
an
something.
overhead stringer, but we've talked about doing it just whatever the cheapest way to do it is. So,
Do we know what DOT requires yet for lighting?
not yes, sir.
So that's really where it's gonna come from.
In Jeff's mind, it was the intersections that needed to be lit, and so that's where he's gonna focus his effort. Barring a DOT comment back the other way.
They have some of those shop lights at Home Depot that are like $70, and they're like,
Well,
They're pretty bright.
you know,
I talked to
you
Danny.
talk about
They're
that,
pretty
but
bright,
I was
yeah.
kinda thinking, it probably needs something a little more than
Oh,
that,
yeah,
but,
but-
right, something you could use again as opposed to flushing money down the drain.
So
Setting a pole that you're gonna rip out 6 months from
the
now.
solutions that we've talked about from an engineering standpoint were really, really, really exotic Christmas lights, a lot of them.
Cool.
All right, and everybody kind of laughed at that one. One of them was mobile lighting, essentially the standby generators or plug-in lighting that are on the trees, and the consensus on that was that that would just be super expensive. We'd have the capital cost of the lights. Do we really need that much invested in them? Leasing them for a year is not gonna be,
No, you pay for them.
yeah, just buying at that point. So the best option would be to set some poles and have some streetlights up.
I guess I'd like to see a cost analysis on that first, though. I mean, you know, if it is $50,000, you can buy a lot of damn mobile lights for $50,000 and run them. And then you got them,
Well, I
so
think-
you sell them.
I think it's gotta come back to
Turn
what's
around.
DOT gonna require.
Yeah, right, because if you don't need them,
Right.
don't put them in.
Right, what are they gonna require us to light or not
John's
light?
point. I come out of these meetings at 7 o'clock and I look this way, and I look this way. No, not a car, not a person, not a dog, nothing.
Let me just be clear on the direction.
Even
you
the
are
dogs
giving
are
me now.
old.
You wanna do whatever the minimum DOT is gonna require, including no lighting.
Well, we'd like to understand.
That's what we have now.
We'd like to understand what they're gonna require.
That's what we have
before
now,
we-
Zeke.
And if they don't tell us we have to do it, I'm not so sure we want to ask them if we have to. You know, I mean, there's a lot of communities that have, including us, that have recommended turning lights off that we don't need to save electricity during the winter because it's not, you know, like this road. You know, I mean, you're lighting a whole bunch of lights going down here that's
It's
just
a hot
like
topic
making
on public
land.
administration.
And it
to
just spends a lot of money.
timers.
So.
But we are also talking, this could go on for almost a year.
This will be
I
about a
know,
year.
but, you know, you're talking about one winter. I mean, summer, is
It's-
it really an issue? I mean, you're light until 9:30 at night, 10
Right.
o'clock,
Right, everybody go to
I
bed.
pulled,
type thing.
I pulled sunset times tonight. I know we all in our head kind of have, I mean, there's that long dusk that we have up here, but the official sunset is at 8:39. And so I thought, okay, how much are people out past 8:39? Well, the Husbys and the Bowl and Beersot are all moving past that. Al Johnson's, I think,
Yeah,
is open until
but
at least 9.
we could pay them to put a light on the roof and shine down and be a heck of a lot cheaper than putting poles up. I mean, I could put an outdoor floodlight and pay for the electricity and put it up on their,
Yep.
the roof.
Because
the hole
of
in
the
roof.
timing
14% increase.
of this, I'll need to have some conversation with Jeff and DOT tomorrow. The MO that I've been acting under is streetlights or something that we want to have, or something that we have now. And I feel like you get massive complaints if you don't have them. They're sort of seen as a public amenity.
Yeah, maybe, except the only complaint I've heard the entire time I've been here is somebody saying, I have a street light and it's shining in my window and I want it turned off.
That's a different issue.
So, foreseeable future, we're gonna be using the sports complex and a multitude of new ventures, possibly some concerts, possibly a sledding hill. Do we have adequate light for all the areas that we're gonna be using? Especially the sledding hill. Do we have enough lighting to cover that over the winter?
No, you
Is
don't
that
have any lighting to cover it right now.
Is that an investment that can be tied in with this project? If we're gonna have to buy lights, let's try to figure out something that we can use in the sports complex.
You're talking about a really upgraded lighting system? If you think about what we have, I'm not knocking it, I'm just asking you to consider. What we have at the ice rink now, those are floodlights, not streetlights. So if we put floodlights in the downtown, and I'm not saying that we can't,
But that's, that's a bulb though versus,
It is. It is-
just
it
a
is a-
bulb.
Kind of.
it's the number of bulbs in the rack of bulbs up
Yeah.
there. So now instead of
Yeah.
just doing a single pole with a Cobra head, which
Yeah.
maybe that cost us $700 to, sit one of those, now you're talking about a pole with a rack with a different power requirement on it and an array at the top that has those angled down or angled out to where they need to be on the particular field of play.
So, but you're gonna spend 70,000 and then say, okay, we're gonna throw that away, and then we're gonna go over here and spend another 120. Why don't we just spend 120, then we're less,
I think
70,000.
we're gonna come out a lot less.
How would you figure that? Because you're gonna have to buy the lights anyways for the sports complex.
This is
Correct.
from me, my knowledge from back when I was in Fremont, we had an electric utility. Each one of those poles cost us about $250 plus the time and effort to set it. We had a pole truck, so let's just exclude that. We'll round it up, call it $500. The Cobra head light itself is leased from WPS. We don't own these lights. WPS technically owns the lights. We pay them a service fee for them. So when they come in and install that Cobra head, we don't have the capital cost of that. They're gonna put it up, come take it back down and send it to wherever build that is needed next. Versus if we put up the light rack, we're gonna have the full capital outlay.
So, but you're still looking at spending money,
That's gonna be ripped
whether
out.
it's $1 or $80,000.
I-
It's spending money where we
Yes, sir.
could use it in another place.
I'll give you another example of what we're gonna be doing. As a result of this project, we will end up having to contract with the county to put down an 1.25 to 2 inches of asphalt in every sidewalk that is gonna get ripped up, which will be there for 6 months before DOT comes back and rips it out again. That's just how the project is staked out. Logically, for me, I would say, no, let's leave it as gravel, until you get into ADA issues, and you can't do that.
Okay, but back to my original point, if we can use that, I don't care if it's $1 or like I said, $100,000, if we can use that money so we don't have to
Again.
spend it in the future, or we just,
You
we're
know.
multitasking it, let's try it,
Okay?
if we can.
And let's check
The other
the-
question that I would bring up to what you're saying, I agree with what you're saying. What's the option of, we're gonna put lights downtown anyway, and it's just a matter that they're not gonna be on overhead, they're not gonna be on overhead later either, okay? It's a matter, the street's gonna be ripped up, and we don't know where they're gonna go yet, they're gonna be out here. What's to prohibit us from buying the amount of lights that we need to light it early, and put them in temporarily? Just take the original light that we're gonna do for the new project, not some jury rig. Say, okay, I'm gonna use those lights anyway.
You've got
I'll
some.
buy them now, I'll plug them into the Marina Park. We got electrical all the way down from the one side of the marina all the way down to Mill Road, set up for concerts. I mean, we got these posts, we got all the Christmas tree lightings and everything, why can't we just set it there temporarily and plug it in and know that we'll move them and put them permanently when we need to?
Sir, when you do that, you're gonna place a concrete cast pad.
Yeah, but so what?
Okay, so you're gonna pour a concrete cast pad, you're gonna have to run wiring over. I take no positive or negative on this. just
I'm
what's
saying
be
you're gonna
done.
buy the light, okay, so I have Steve go out there and pour a concrete pad,
Okay,
okay? Just like he did for the volleyball nets.
Yeah.
I mean, so what? I mean, it cost us $300 for concrete to pour a pad
okay,
and stick it there. And I'll take my tractor and I'll plug it in with an extension cord if I have to, and then when the
Okay.
project is done, I'll come over with the tractor and I'll unbolt them there, and I'll throw that concrete away and I'll put them where they go permanently. But I've got my post that I'm gonna use anyway.
We can look into it and ask the question. It's probably simpler to put a couple of wooden poles up with an overhead stringer.
right off the top, John, what I can think of is that, one, you've now got the light post where we're gonna have heavy equipment pulling and potential cave-ins, and so now you might lose a $1,000 light post.
No, I can get around that. I'll just put it back further. I mean,
Sure, and yeah, you can sit them way
Yeah,
back. Then the other problem that comes up is you're gonna go from a 8-foot deep set trench, trenching over 8 feet to run for that light post to get it out of the TLE for DOT's construction and pop it up. It's doable, but now you're talking about more cost in doing that. I don't know which
I'm
one's
not
cheaper.
talking
the
about
other.
doing any of that. I'm talking about buying the light, so we have the post and doing them as a temporary plug-in, using that as our lights. Let
You have-
DOT, or let,
But they have to be hooked up.
You have to be
and they
able to
have
get
mounted.
DOT to dig in those places, so the wire has to go
What I was
beneath
saying
it.
about is running an electrical cord from our existing electricity we have all the way down the entire village street. all the way up to.
But that's all gonna be
past the post
removed.
office. Not ours, not in the park, it's not. Not at Marina Park, at the Boda Park, and, we have electrical in the park behind the post office, we have electrical by the, Johnson Park, we have electrical by the Village Hall, we have electrical on Marina Park on the other side of the Marina office building.
All of those posts that are down by the marina are sitting inside of the TLE for DOT. So they will have to come out probably sometime midwinter when DOT is doing that project. All of that is currently planned to be rerouted. What you're talking about could be achieved, there's just a cost to it.
Yeah, it's a little look into it.
I can ask a question.
As far as the sledding hill goes, Parks hasn't got that far looking into it. But wouldn't you want it a little dark? It's a lot of fun running into other sleds and kids.
So you meet people.
Hill 17, what lights are on Hill 17?
Candlelight, man,
That's when it
candlelight.
closes.
Part of what makes it fun is
We're having a sweetheart skate.
So, I mean, hey, how good is our insurance policy, I guess?
it's in really good shape.
That's right.
It's $31,000 worth of good shape.
Yeah, well, you look at it and you say, every municipality around the country is shutting down their sledding hills,
Yeah.
and we're building one, so
Good,
That's good.
I'm okay with
it
it.
is good. I am too. I'm sorry to all this political.
So, at any rate,
We're chopping down our hands.
KS Energy hopes to get started next week. They will be using the Mill Road parcel as a staging area for things, so look for vehicles and whatnot and equipment to be there. Enforcement actions, Kathy, y'all gotten taken care of what you need to get taken care of at the top?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
That was really what that was on there for.
Oh, yeah.
A letter out, are you guys gonna take care of that?
Yes, I haven't seen the letter yet.
Okay, did you,
Yes,
okay.
yeah. We talked about that yesterday, and we have our board meeting on the 9th, so.
I guess I should, we've had one enforcement action in the village in the last couple of months, which is an abandoned vehicle and some trailers up at the Country Walk Shop. We have 3 possible remedies to it. The fastest and probably the least expensive remedy for everybody involved is for the property owner to remedy it. This would be Country Walk Shops. The other ones involve us spending money and initiating legal action to take care of it. So they want it out of there. I've written them a letter that said, hey, get it out of there, and it'll go from there.
Matters to be placed on future agenda, referred to committee, official, or employee.
I have bring back the Donahue contract with the amendments, as well as a report on expenditures.
Lighting, but not, until we find out what DOT wants.
Yeah, you talked about the end of February coming in and doing it. I may need to have a Bayshore Drive meeting between now and then, just to answer that question. I'll find out from DOT, we'll go from there.
Okay. Committee reports. Admin has not met. Shore Oversight has not met. Coastal Byways.
First minutes in there are from November. I covered that last month. Had a meeting on the 14th of January. Reviewed progress on our website updating. Discussion on brochure distribution for 2015, gone with Paperboy, which will be about 75 racks out of 140 that they service. And we also had a discussion on an effort to lobby the Federal Highway Administration to reopening the National Scenic Byway application. We're going to attempt to become a national at some point, I think. That's it.
DCECD.
DCEDC?
EDC, Megan, Scott, you wanna?
Well, the first one from December, I covered that last month. The one that's not here, I didn't attend the meeting. I had the plague, so.
And then he passed it along to me.
I wasn't at that meeting.
At that meeting, it was effectively a conversation about what was going on in Sturgeon Bay. There was some discussion of that. We also had a presentation from a gentleman from WEDC, the regional manager, or one of the regional managers, from there about programs they had, various opportunities.
Economic Development. Has not met. Finance.
Has not met?
Note on economic development.
Everybody's
Don't-
sitting around.
The finance minutes in here of November 18th have not been approved, and actually there are minutes of 3 committees in here that don't necessarily meet on a regular basis, and it would be great if they could be approved so that we can get them in the
You need to do them at those
proper
committees.
file.
No, they can be approved at the board. It's in our bylaws. You can approve the minutes at this meeting.
They can be, right?
They can be, that's correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the finance minutes from November 18th.
What else needs to be approved?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's good.
Thank you.
Fire.
I don't think we had a board meeting. They had an exploratory meeting, which I'm not part of, but there are minutes in there.
Good.
Fire District Exploratory, the letter's in here. Historical Society.
Historical Society has not met since our last meeting. We are looking at maybe having a February meeting and having Zeke come present a couple ideas on some things they might be interested in. I think February 3rd, something like that, is how they might.
That's coming next week.
Day after Groundhog Day. You'll know whether we got a lighter spring or a heavier spring. Library building.
Yeah, we had 2 meetings, both minutes are in there, November and January 13th. Everything's going great. Changed the company that is handling the fire sprinklers. And that was the biggest one.
Okay. Marina and Marina Fest.
Have not met.
Marina Fest is going along very well between Wendy and I. We're just kind of doing some of the background stuff. We have discussed, at the next Marina Fest meeting, we'll discuss it, but we have discussed and we talked about things happening organically, and this is a great segue to come into it. We have discussed bringing a second day into Marina Fest possibly this year, in the hopes that we can keep our marine and Door County heritage alive by possibly doing a lumberjack show. Having a group of individuals come in and actually do some lumberjacking with a rich history of the timber industry and
Boating.
maritime use of. Figure it might be a nice little
Get some
pull
log
and
rolling.
draw. And there's nothing else going on that weekend, so we're trying the best we can. So if it happens, it happens. If not,
Have a log floating race?
that's what we're hoping.
Stand on your spin it,
Yeah.
with your feet.
Why not?
Yeah, we're hoping we can set it up basically on the Marina Fest grounds and use the water for any water type competitions they might have.
I mean, you
So,
could take the swim pier there and that L on the inside of the swim pier and put some logs in there and have them do their log roll.
yeah.
You know, fall down into 2 feet of water, 3 feet of water.
So we're just trying to find a local lumberjack. Lumberjacks.
I figured you were gonna be part of that.
This comes off in May, so.
Aren't you somewhat related to somebody who's involved in logging, lumberjacking?
Yeah, but I
In the
don't know.
past,
If
right?
I know. Do they have like an underground lumberjack society that he belongs to, or?
He hasn't been involved for a while, but yeah, I'm sure he might know some guys though.
Yeah.
Or at least some names that were in it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, when
He hasn't
you
been in it for a while.
say that, and I don't know about all the different tall ships, but the whole heritage is steamships and ships coming up with cordwood and steamers. If there's any of them around somewhere, I don't know, you know, like we have the tall ships come into some place, if they had
Wendy,
something like that, it'd be nice
We
to
had
have
one
one.
conversation about them anchoring off somewhere and then running the water taxi or something. out
Yeah,
to
run it out to them and do tours or something like that. I mean, you could turn the bay into, you know, take it back 100 years. You know, we had all the sawmills and everything else and have a couple of, you know.
You just need to build a breakwater about
Yeah.
half a mile out.
Just in case.
See if the DNR will give you the thumbs up on that.
We call it marine habitat, Shane. That's what it is.
But September's always the big logging congress too, so we have to make sure there won't be conflicts with that, or you're gonna find most of the guys there.
Yeah, see, and that's the
That would be
stuff I
doing
don't know, so,
Because I remember we always went to the logging shows in early September.
yeah. So we're looking, we're out on the web. I don't know how many lumberjacks have websites, but we'll find out.
And I just threw away one of those walking magazines. You should have told me this a couple
Still-
weeks ago.
Steel Timber Sports, Shane.
Yes, yeah.
That,
Now, this is Marina Fest?
Yeah, that would be the second day of Marina
Okay.
Fest. So, and it would not be a marina event if we can get
Be
it
a
here.
waterfront event.
It would be, we would try to push it to the marketing committee and see what the marketing committee says.
Speaking of marketing, since that would, it's not on here, but it's next in our
That's
minute
right.
package. Marketing committee.
Marketing committee is going along pretty darn well. We finally made some progress on things that we were going to do. There is a Sunsplash Music Festival that we have given the thumbs up to go for this coming year. We're thinking about August 8th, so it's the weekend after Marina Fest.
No,
No.
No.
August.
August.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, about a month before Marina Fest. Would be coming through. The gentleman and lady that were there are super excited, they're super passionate about it. This is what they want to do, and they see Sister Bay as a long-term place for them, especially with the pavilion.
it's the 5th year they've done it,
Yeah,
or 4th year they've done it.
yeah. Yeah, so this will be their
The
4th
fifth,
year.
okay.
Or, yeah, 4th year. And they said the municipalities that they have left in the past, the reason why is just because of,
Distance
Yeah.
was one of the issues, cited in the middle of nowhere, there's no love.
distance and space for them. Just, they say that they see this to be a perfect area to do that.
But they've been constrained by bars in the past, and essentially how many people you can fit into the bar.
Mhm.
And so once they've hit that threshold, it's been like, okay, well, now what do we do?
Yeah. So it seems like it's gonna be good. We're gonna start initial planning for the grounds to be TKH, dog park.
Dog park, TKH, soccer field.
Soccer field, something like that, with a backup plan. If everything is great and grand at the pavilion, we'll be able to move them over there. So we'll have both plans and set, but as of right now, we're gonna plan to go TKH, and then if everything's great and we get the all clear, we'll move them right into there.
Yeah.
And they're very aware of that, so.
So I guess one other point on that would be looking at how to make this event sustainable. One of the mandates the board gave us some time ago was to figure out how to take the money that we had and to leverage it into that much more. The committee made a motion to pass on to the Parks Committee for further consideration, a recommendation that camping be allowed up at the sports complex during that weekend as a means to create revenue for that event. There's a lot of issues surrounding ticketing. The other one that the marketing committee took up was an operating agreement between the village and SBAA. And we had some conversation about that last year and trying to get some things nailed down. Our good neighbors down in Egg Harbor were kind enough to provide us with a copy of the one that they use between them and their business association. So we've taken it and modified the language. This is round number 2 with it. It now goes before the SBA board. They'll talk about it, send it back to us. Hopefully we'll have something knocked out in the next couple of months that we can bring back to the board.
And it seems reasonable. The one that SBAA had looked at and the one that we submitted, they weren't far off. There were some big sticking points for sure, but they weren't far off. So I think it's going to be an agreeable contract, and I think it also helps everybody on both sides know what to expect from each other. So I think a lot of the, what do you do for this money is cleared up, will be cleared up through this contract. So I think it's going to be a great platform to jump off from and start an awesome relationship, or to sink a ship. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it. It requires some performance metrics to be submitted to this board. For example, traffic counts, revenue versus expenditure numbers for events, things that are tangible for us to look at and say, yeah, you're doing a good job with taxpayers' money, or no, you're not doing a good job with taxpayers' money.
In the minutes here, there's 2 items. There is the Sister Bay Car Show and the village-wide rummage sale. I understand the car show. Why are we blowing off the rummage sale?
We didn't.
we didn't. It was an expansion of.
If the minutes didn't reflect that, the village.
Sounds to me like it's not.
Yeah, one of them said, it's, if you read a little bit further down, it says that they approved the rummage sale in addition. One of them says we can only do one, and the other
Right.
one says that, we're doing it.
What came out of it was the village will pick up the rummage sale at least for this coming year, and we take a look at it as a marketing committee in subsequent years. So we do the math and all the rigmarole that has been done with it. I'd work with somebody to contract out the growth of the event. Right now, it's essentially a break even. When you start factoring staff time to this, it's a big loss. So we've got to figure out a way to.
Right. It does bring hundreds of people
Yes, it
into
does.
the
Yes, it
village.
does.
It's a major metric. One of the things that I've talked about with the contractor is looking at making it more market oriented in terms of pricing. However, the price hasn't been adjusted in 10 years, so you can't go from a price from 2004 to what it should be now. You've incrementally got to build that to get to where you need to be, otherwise you alienate the customers.
Or you gotta do it differently.
Well, that's part of it too, looking at how to expand it into other venues. We've had some conversations with antiques dealers, flea market dealers. We may end up changing the name of it as a result of the conversation with those entities and with the contractors. So what it looks like from a naming standpoint, it will become is the Village Antique Flea Market. So when you talk to those third-party contractors, they don't want anything to do with the word rummage.
Yes, right.
So
Okay, that's
the,
fine.
the big overwhelming, and might have not have come across this, is that, I think the majority of us were very much, wanted to keep it, but how do you make it not a leech on the village now that the village will take it over? Because SBAA has no want, no desire, no need, and I've made that very clear. So if we want to keep it going, the village has to make it sustainable. It can't be another drain, and I understand it brings a lot of people, I've said it over and over again. I see difference in my business in
Mhm.
Fish Creek.
Mhm.
I think it's a great idea, and I think we're pushing it that direction. The village felt like they did not have the proper resources to do both events effectively with the projects that are coming up. So the expansion of the event is being pushed off to someone else.
One of the things that I'm just relaying as a part of this conversation, that I've engaged in conversations with outside entities that have shows, run shows that are based on antiques dealers or flea market type dealers. There's an overwhelming preference to move the weekend to the same weekend as the car show, so that there is stacking of things, and the perception that, in just talking to 5 of them, Door County doesn't open until July the 4th, and to come up and bear the weather risk of being there probably does not outweigh the minimum financial reward that will be associated with whatever we could do. So when we combine on a Memorial Day weekend, there's a stronger case to have vendors come up and participate. I'll bring them back and just tell them that's kind of going in the background.
It's a discussion that can be had for sure. Whatever makes the event most successful, but I think the purpose of the event in the past had been
A lead in.
a lead into the season, and it covers a bare spot. It kind of helps
Yeah.
people open up, and it's also,
Right.
with a village-wide rummage sale, you're not gonna get the citizen participation on Memorial Weekend. It's just not
That's the
gonna
flip side of it. Yep.
happen. Yeah, it may, I can't say it
So-
won't, it'll be less.
So for this
Keep that
year,
busy.
it's gonna be kind of sort of what it has been?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And we're gonna try to bring in an antique show, but for sure it's gonna run exactly how it was, and we'll see what we get from there.
One of the ironies is when you check in like the Numismatic Society for the state or the Sports Collector Card Society for the state, they all have their conventions on the same weekend we do that. I'm guessing for the same reason as they all want to go play on Memorial Day weekend. So to book them up here becomes really hard to do as well.
Sure.
Anyway, okay.
Okay. Parks. I believe there's.
Met at pizza. Good times had by all.
That's right.
That's right.
Guys have pizza again?
Yeah, we did.
They just did the wrong meeting
We
sheet.
had pizza.
We had a pizza party to thank our brave men and women working in the parks for the great and awesome job they do.
Yep.
Gotta talk to some of our chairs of our committee, see if we can get some pizza where I am.
You're
I think
finance chair.
I think
you
you're
can
the
figure it out.
chair. You're the chair of those.
You're paying,
committees,
you're
yeah.
paying the bills now.
I was gonna say, I don't know.
No, he didn't pay that bill, I guarantee it.
That's right, yeah.
That was not put on by
That's
the
right,
village.
that's right.
No, yeah, didn't come out of our budget.
Personnel.
This is another step that I hope you can approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any objections, corrections, or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Plan Commission. Minutes are in the package.
Yeah.
Been over all this.
I see there's nothing on the plan because we canceled it this month.
Today?
What are these different projects, or can you give us any update, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, dealt a good bit of time today on both of them. The Garrett project, the development agreement continues to circulate back and forth between attorneys and myself to get it to a point that I can bring it back to finance. I hope this is the last iteration of that before I can bring it back. I just sent my version back to our attorney for this. He'll send it over to Keith's attorney, and hopefully that's the end of it. Premier just sent me their first draft of materials today. It looks like they have overwhelmingly got their stuff together for the old ball field and what's there. They very much would like to expand on that project if possible. They had submitted a second offer, and we'll continue to work on dealing with that. Two buildings, they look really good. I sent them back a memo with a couple of points that said, hey, clean these few things up. And I've got to have a conversation with Chris Eck and Steve Jacobson. And my hope is to have the preliminary and the final on the same meeting in February so that they're green lighted and can start on what they need to start on. And they've got a huge team working on things to just plow through it. They've already done landscaping, they've already done drainage up there. I've sent that over to Robert E. Lee to start looking at, and I've asked him beforehand, hey, do you want me to expedite this? And they're like, yes, please expedite it. So that's moving along at a good
What
clip.
about Gorky and the schoolhouse?
This morning when I drove past, he was up there working on it. We've had a couple of conversations about it. They are back and forth on what the final configuration will be. I think right now their focus is tearing down the building. The last conversation we had, they were torn between doing somewhere between 5 and 9 lots. With less than 5 lots, it doesn't have to go before state review. Over 5 lots, you've got to submit, and there's a higher level of money that gets kicked in for state level review. So we've had one conversation with Robert E. Lee and Associates and them about what's going on there, as well as what's going on down on the waterfront. I'm still waiting on a legal draft from them so that we can consider it as a legal offer. The parcel that we created separate from the parking lot down there.
Back to the ball field. Have you heard anything from any of the association at the orchards? Okay. Just a question.
Comtech Committee has not met. SBAA.
SBA met early in January, approved their budget. They also developed a personnel committee to kind of review and write more detailed job descriptions. And let's see, they're also looking at doing some seminar or educational type things that might be available to the community, business owners, and then maybe even the surrounding members. Talked a little bit also about that Midwest Splash and membership, and did say something about the expectations being written or worked on, which I'd kind of like to be included on if I'm going to be the rep there to see what's going on. I haven't seen any of this, so I think that would be a good idea, because I'm liable to get questioned on things, but.
On what's going on, right?
On what's going on, yeah.
Okay.
Teen Center.
Sorry.
SBAA submitted their quarterly statement through the end of December, and we need a motion to approve those financials so that their quarterly support payment can be released.
Was this one?
It's underneath your,
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, I didn't read that.
make the motion to approve the financial quarterly from SBA.
A second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You had something else?
Yes, item number 3 with SBAA in those minutes. This was a presentation done by DC
Oh.
Broadband, which is Nate Bell.
True, yeah.
And I don't know what direction we want to go with it. Essentially, the SBA Board of Directors recommended that we take a look at something. They're not an entity of us, but tacitly gave their support to the idea of a village-wide Wi-Fi network. Last time we took this up was with Communications and Technology. Communications and Technology said, no, we don't want to do anything with it. I don't know if Nora got
Is
any input.
SBA willing to pay for it?
No, they're sending
They-
it back to us.
Yeah.
They'll put it
No,
on our
they,
lap.
they think that it's a good idea. They don't know that necessarily this is the best plan, the only plan, but they would be in support of investigating it further.
I've not gone anywhere with it. I was contacted by Mr. Bell, and I said, look, just write a proposal for whatever it is that you got, what you're thinking about, and we'll go from there with it.
Yeah, he had a regular plan he presented with different points where they would have to put antennas and different things to,
I think
They
the one thing that needs to materialize is some kind of a cost on what it is and who bears cost on what. Is it
or
a-
there were different levels. You could pass it on totally to the customer. There could be a minimal amount of minutes that could be paid for so that people could make emergency type things if they don't have their cell service or whatever. So there were like 3 different levels of what communities can do. So probably the best thing to do would have somebody actually listen to this presentation and see if it's something you want to check out more, maybe a future item.
Okay. Tourism zone.
Net.
Yep. They decided to table the marina room tax issue,
Indefinitely.
Thank God.
and legal opinion was still very gray. It was kind of like, you could interpret it either way, it sounded like.
The problem I have, if you read the article in the Pulse or whatever, it doesn't say, we decided to table it. The chair of the committee is really
Yeah.
pursuing it according to his comments. Oh, we have to do this and
No.
boy,
No.
it's
That wasn't
against
at the
the law
meeting
and
at
stuff
all.
like that.
That wasn't at all the
Well,
meeting,
that's
no.
what comes out in the
Yeah.
paper.
No, it made for a really good read, but that was not the reality.
Yeah.
There was quite extensive discussion and things on both sides, and it didn't seem like it was really gonna go anywhere.
No, it essentially what you have is a group of hoteliers who were on that board, and at least my perception of it was there were only, and I asked for a show of hands, how many of you have some involvement with the marina? It was Nora, myself, and Josh Van Lash out of Egg Harbor that had any involvement with the marina. The hoteliers did not want to see any kind of a division in marketing dollars. That's really what it boils down to. And they, at one point, one of them made a recommendation that we send a letter off to the state asking that we put a gas tax on boaters. That's how, at least he claimed, the state of Michigan paid for all of the things that they did, which in essence is saying we'd like to really do nothing and just let this issue die. There were other communities brought up by the attorney that do charge transient occupancy tax on RV spaces. I think he cited 2 of those as examples of other communities that do that.
Well, we do charge transient tax on our marina slips, or transient slips. They charge tax, they just don't charge a room tax for county.
Yeah, that's what
Sales
we're
tax.
talking about
Sales tax
specifically.
for,
Yeah.
okay, we charge.
Okay, so is that
Same thing
half
with
of
Canada.
1%? Is that what that is? It goes from 5.5 to,
It'd be a 5.5
5.5%, that's the room tax.
on transits.
okay, so you'd go from 5.5 for the sales tax to 11% if you were collecting.
Same as last
Just like a hotel.
It'd have to be the same. If it's under the same law, it'd have to be the same.
Okay.
But,
It's dead. Absent some marinas getting together and saying how we want to do this and please tax us.
Highly unlikely.
Please tax us.
You can lead that charge.
Yeah, I will. You can rest assured.
Utilities.
I'm curious about the Michigan thing. Was there any you say they impose a tax on gas? So at the fuel docks, there's a
And then
tax
that's-
that's part of the cost of the fuel?
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess they did in Wisconsin at one time, they said that,
Yeah.
the gas sold at marinas, that tax went into the marina funds all along the lake. That's how Sheboygan and Manitowoc and all of them got their marinas.
Yeah, but there's not just gas
Right.
tax, marina, or the whole Michigan system and DNR and marinas, their whole focus is boating, okay, and the water.
Yep, they wanna keep everybody on
And
their
that's-
side of the lake.
That's right, and they have all of all their marinas are updated, they're all new, there's a lot of funding goes through that, and they do it because they focus it, but also every reservation now, or like 80% of them are state through the DNR, and they get $8 for every reservation you make online that you do yourself. They get $8 fee for that, they get $10 if you cancel it, and they get another $8 if you change it. So, you know, they get all those fees that go into that, you know, to their marinas and their type of system. So, I mean, there's a lot of money put into the marinas on state aid in Michigan, so.
So what I heard John say was he wants fees at the marina.
That's what I need is more. Because all the boaters that go over there that wanna come over here, the only reason they don't come over here is because we're too cheap.
Can you guarantee that?
No, what's interesting is if there is gas tax, oftentimes the gas is cheaper there. Well, we'll fuel up before we come back here because it's cheaper there, so if they're able to,
But they have a lower state
They have a
tax
lower
for
state
fuel to
tax.
start with.
Then,
so I thought
That's all.
on Marina, they don't pull it.
Oh, no, there's tax on it. Oh, yeah.
On Marina gas?
It's not a highway
Yeah.
tax.
It's not a highway tax.
Oh,
Utilities.
good.
We saw the results in
Met
item number
meeting.
1.
Yeah.
The minutes have been prepared, I don't think they're in this packet.
Yes, they are.
Are they?
From the utility, from the
I saw
recent
the-
one?
I saw the Wawa, or whatever we're now
Yeah.
calling that one.
That's unapproved. Do we need to approve that one?
No. Should go to the next meeting.
The-
Yeah, so, you know, the utility thing, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Frank is not rerunning, and it seems as though other people don't seem to necessarily understand the necessity to figure this out, or
Yep.
what benefit to the town is it, whether they have a stake of ownership or not. So I guess, you know, I think it would be good for us to have a clear understanding, and they have the same understanding, which is why I think we should proceed. It's a matter of, you know, and there was, you know, comment of, well, mediation, you know, the party that doesn't get the answer that they want out of mediation is probably gonna go to the court. So do you really wanna spend the time, money, and effort on mediation, or just go to the court? I mean, per our agreement, we're supposed to go to
We got
mediation.
mediation first.
And if you go to court, they're gonna turn around and
They're
bring
they're
mediation
gonna
back.
tell, yeah,
Yeah.
So,
that happened with Small,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I would expect more stall.
But I think at this point, it's responsible for us to do this because it's only selling relationships more and more between the two entities.
That's correct.
And put it into a third party's hands to where they can make a reasonable decision based on the facts that are out there.
Right.
And hopefully we can live with it. If not, it's that entity's choice to go to a second level. It is what it is. I mean,
Actually, the interesting point in the meeting, it was a point where I asked the Liberty Grove side if they'd be willing to make a presentation at a later date while we continue to pursue this path of mediation, and they indicated that,
I think we just need to move it on. We've waited a long time. This has been on for 8 to 10 years overall. And you know, we need to be friends with Liberty Grove. There's a lot of things we work with Liberty Grove on. And this is just becoming a thorn in the foot that is becoming a bigger issue. So I think we need to clear it off. And
It sounded
Get
like you
back to
sent
being
the
friends.
same kind of letter last year, asking them to,
that was in December of
We-
last year, yeah.
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 Yes.
We've had, I think, 8 more non-scheduled meetings that have been canceled.
Lots and lots.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of canceled ones, but what if they just don't respond?
Then we just go to court, get a judgment in our favor and move on.
Because there's a
There's a
agreement,
90-day type
there's an
of thing.
agreement that's laid out that says this is the course of action if we don't agree on something.
Right.
Right.
And that's what we're following now. So if they don't show up, then it goes to the next level.
Okay, so we send them this letter, right? And then there's something about selecting the mediator.
We select a mediator and appoint it within that 90-day period of time. like it
You
is.
have 90 days after the letter, right, to
Right.
respond or do something?
Right. Admin and comp oversight has not met.
Yes, if you need to approve those.
That's the third set.
That's the
Do we have
other
enough
set of
people here?
minutes.
Do we have, oh, you have 3, don't you?
You have a
I'm not
committee
on
that
it.
is no longer going to meet, I'd say just,
Well, we can take care, we can eliminate it. We'll eliminate it in May. When we do bylaws again.
Okay.
give me a moment, I'll read.
Because it wasn't an ad hoc, that sunset.
Do we have any personnel?
I don't,
You don't have anything, okay.
I don't have
either.
anything scheduled. Is there any personnel issues? Kathy's just asking.
Do you have any meetings?
scheduled?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I
Good.
just didn't know if I missed one.
No,
I
the
tend to
last
miss
one I think
those
was
a
in
lot.
December, and then the last one you did right within this meeting.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, okay.
So we, oh yeah, we have a quorum, we have enough to approve minutes.
I think so.
I'll make a motion, we approve minutes from the last admin and comp meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's Lino and
Waterfront oversight has not met. Anybody else wants to meet or has not met that wants to meet? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I'll make that motion, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
The only thing that I want to do for future